Hello, welcome to my channel. My name's Kenley. I hope you're all doing well. Just bear with me 1 minute while I just pop this. Like that. So I hope everyone's coping with the cold weather. As you can see, I'm obviously Nash. Although, makes you appreciate the heating, doesn't it? So today's video is basically all about the healing power of fruit. So how did I come about, finding out about the power of fruit? First and foremost, I came across an amazing channel that it seemed out there, as you do, you can sort of, the truth is stranger than fiction, if you catch my drift. And that channel being Dr. Robert Morse, naturopathic doctor. If you're interested, check him out. He's a fantastic man. Words fail me when it comes to describing the knowledge that this man, has got within him, and the sheer love that you can just feel, when he's trying to educate people, and sharing all the knowledge that he's obtained from his own journey from Hellville. That's a quote from Dr. Morse's channel. From Hellville to Wellville. So, yeah, I came across his channel, and I can remember, because I was in bed, not very well at all, at my wit's end, feeling really, really poorly. The most menial of tasks. Well, I just couldn't do them. And if I had to do them, which obviously we all have chores to do, the usual. I've got a dog who's upstairs, by the way. He has this tendency to bark at anything and nothing. Bless him, he's getting on a bit now, but so yes, where was I? So yeah, I was lying in bed, came across Robert Morse's channel. And I'm a great believer in destiny, and there's no such thing as coincidences. It's all, meant to be. And so I watched a few of his videos, and at first, I've got to admit, me being me, I thought, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way, an easier way where I can still eat shit, pardon my French. So I pondered on it for a bit. You could say I was in a bit of denial. You see, some people know, the people that are closest to me, friends and family, it's no secret that I used to lead a dark, unfulfilling and very unhealthy lifestyle, without a doubt. So what do I mean by that? Well, in a nutshell, because of certain things that I'd experienced whilst growing up. Bullying, you know, not feeling like I fit in anywhere. And I'm only touching on this, I'm not going into great detail because I don't want to get sidetracked. And so, with my old school friends, we basically tried cannabis for the first time. I can remember feeling at ease, comfortable, like I could relate for a change, like I belonged, like I was wanted, understood, as opposed to feeling somewhat invisible growing up. Now, I'm not pointing the finger, I'm not blaming anyone. This channel isn't about blaming anyone. It's just merely trying to give a little bit back to those who are interested, and also for my own benefit, as in a type of vlog, you know, documenting the trials and tribulations, and the obvious, you know, pros and cons, the difficulties that I've faced, the emotional change, spiritual change. And so yes, where was I? And so I remember feeling quite sentimental, almost overwhelming sense of, like, I found my people, I found my family. And funnily enough, you know, or not, my best friend, one of my best friends, was my cousin. We had his moments, you know, we had his fallings out, as many people do. It's just a part of being human and being different, you know, and learning to get on and accept differences and embrace that. And so, before I get off track, it was like home. You see, I'm an only child. I do have a half sister. I have stepsisters, but they came along later, after my mum and dad had split up. And so I remember thinking, when I was at home, I'd got no one to relate to. My mum, she was at home, you know, when I came home from school and things like that. We used to always have a dinner ready, regular as clockwork near enough, ready for when my dad walked through the door, always at 5 o'clock-ish. But I remember feeling somewhat of an alien in my own home. Like I said, I'm not pointing the finger. The only power I've got is to put my hand up and accept responsibility. In fact, embrace responsibility. See, there's a clue in that word. And to respond instead of react. And I'm no stranger to reacting. You know, sometimes, depending on how I feel, certain shit still triggers me. and I go off. And so, cutting a long story short, because it's not really about my family, I just want to give like a brief sort of background on things. I can remember you see, back then at the time, I didn't even realise that my family wasn't the same as some other families, you know. I don't think any family is the same as other families. That being said, the point I'm trying to make is, and Mom, if you're watching or if you do see this video, just know I love you very much. You're my mum. You know, bottom line, we all do his best, you know. And I know it's parenting, so I'm a parent myself, and so I can relate, you know, almost identically to my mum. That if you aren't aware of certain things that other people, maybe, whether that's through different friends, you know, upbringing from your immediate caregivers, that being, you know, your parents or guardians or whoever you've, you know, been taught morals and, you know, how you've been brought up. And so I remember that I almost felt unwanted. I can't really put my finger on it still, but I feel that I possibly understand. You see, what I can't do is speak for my mum. And I wouldn't even want to speak for my mum. But I know wholeheartedly, I know she loves me. I know that love isn't about giving someone what they want, doing what they want, or acting as someone else wants. It's about doing your best, being the best you, sharing the best you. None of us get a book. Possibly even if we did get a book on how to parent, we won't have time to read it. That being said, good parenting and good knowledge, and by knowledge I mean to know and not to theoreticalise or believe or think, I mean, you know, to know. So my mum, she was very tidy. She still is. Took care and took pride in looking after things. And I know because she's told me herself, but I don't want to sort of divert too much, and I don't want to speak about things that I don't know about. But my mum's told me that my grandma, God bless her, and my granddad were very busy, and there was 5 children. My mum being the second to youngest. So the youngest being one of my aunties, but I won't mention her name for obvious reasons. So when they were growing up, my other auntie, I believe she was at work or she was training. Originally she did want to be in, you know, the police force, and she wanted to look after people and make a difference and, you know, all that. Anyway, so, and my uncles, they were working. As we all know, or not, that in the past, many people used to start work really early on. You know, teenagers, sometimes even younger than that. And so my mum had to do things that normal children that she probably went to school with didn't have to do. That being said, I can almost be certain that for some time my mum probably wasn't aware of this. You know, like I say, if you were brought up with an elephant in the room, but nobody ever mentioned it, you know, nobody ever brought it to light that it was an elephant in the front room. So basically, you know, you would be inclined to be unaware of it, you know, because it's part of the furniture. It was just there. It's always been there. So you know, no difference. And so she had to get the tea on after school. And it's a responsibility, you know, as we all know. But obviously in a family setting, it's, you know, just a basic need and necessity. And so I can imagine if that was me, I would feel that it was unfair, you know, possibly more than my mum. See, my mum's, she's very, very strong and calm-natured, to the point of people-pleasing. As I said, Mum, if you come across this video, I'm not in any way, shape or form pointing the finger, blaming, shaming. It's not that. So my mum doesn't like to rock the boat. She doesn't like to cause conflict. I also know that in a lot of ways she lacks a lot of self-belief and a lot of self-esteem, which will tie into what, you know, what I'm getting at. And so the same thing with the elephant in the room. If it's never been there, or if it's always been there and not brought to your attention, then it doesn't stand out, you know, and it becomes a subconscious part of the furniture. Obviously, in the past, things were different in parenting and in families in a lot of ways. Possibly better in a lot of ways, possibly worse, you know. And so she, on the negative, and I'm only, you know, like I say, I can't speak for my mum, but in my experience with being people pleasing, you know, I've got a tendency to do just that. If it's one thing I hate, it's confrontation. I would rather run in the opposite direction, you know, And I still very much so have to work on voicing my opinion and my thoughts and feelings. Why? Not because I feel that, not even that I want to be putting my point across, you know, but basically, you know, we all have a right to our opinion, as we know. But because of being bullied at school, my mum got bullied at school as well. I'm not sure to the extent that I did, but, you know, I digress. And then the parenting, you know, was somewhat stricter in a lot of ways. You know, I can remember my mum telling me that she wasn't allowed, or like wouldn't have dreamt of taking anyone back and saying, oh, such and such has come for tea, or, you know, and letting them upstairs, which is something that I was always allowed to do, most of the time, so within reason. And so, yeah, so I don't get off topic. The point I'm making is, with my mum's nature, as I said, I'm very similar. You get to a point where, you know, like I say, she wouldn't have questioned a mum or dad, she wouldn't have argued. It would have been a case of, you know, there'll be trouble if tea ain't on. And so to come home from school and to have to do, you know, like domestic chores, I'm not saying it's a killer, it just was. And so she just got on with it, as we all possibly would, you know. We all want approval from as parents, we want to get along with as parents, we definitely don't want to be disciplined if we can help it, you know, so we never want to be a disappointment. And so it must have been a big responsibility, and one that my mum didn't want to pass on to me. She didn't want me to have to do stuff like that. And thank you, Mum, and I love you for that. But it held me back somewhat, in a lot of ways. So, just going off the subject of my mum, and, you know, in my circumstances, my mum and dad were quite strict. My mum didn't really engage in discipline that much. You know, if I'd been awkward in, you know, or cheeky, or whatever it was, you know, if it was bad enough, she would always say, wait till your dad gets home. And I knew then, because my dad, you know, he worked a physical job, he still does, bless him. He's a hard worker, my dad. He's, you know, the most important man in my life, and someone I look up to. And so is my mum, you know. I wish I could have my mum's calm, you know, demeanour, if you like. I'm sort of like a bipolar mix of the two. And so my mum sheltered me from having to do things like that. And it never even occurred to me, really, you know, about cooking and about things like that. And, you know, my mum didn't teach me I feel about a lot of things that could or would have helped. Just let me move this back up. In, you know, life skills and some social skills. And because of her upbringing and their family unit being so busy with life and certain duties and responsibilities, she didn't want that for me. I know I'm like repeating myself now, but I tried approaching my mum on several occasions about the usual growing up stuff, you know, and initially I felt that there was something wrong with me. I didn't really know what. I didn't ask what. But I always felt like I was interrupting my mum. She was always a busy lady. She still is. Jet setting over the world and all that sort of stuff. And times have changed. Hopefully for the better for all of us. But I can remember trying to ask her about growing up and, you know, bodily changes, starting my period and things like that. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of that I was interrupting my mum while she was doing her jobs or getting in the way. And I'm sorry, Mum, you know, I have spoke to you about this, you know, and we've dealt with this. And there's, you know, as we do with all things in families, you know, love is a truly amazing thing, you know, and the power of love, you can get over anything and everything, you know, if everyone involved desires that. And so, you know, like I said, I had no brothers or sisters at the time, which I always wanted, you know. I felt so alone. When my dad used to come home from work, he was tired, like everybody, you know, but he had a physical job. He started work at a young age, you know, only works hard. And looking back, I know, you know, the way that a man shows that he loves his family is to provide for him. Bottom line. And that's my dad in a nutshell, you know. And my mum reciprocated that, you know, by maintaining the house. And she did all, you know, like the financial side of making sure the bills were paid, making sure the tea was on the table, that there was a clean house, well looked after. She didn't want my dad coming in from work and, you know, sort of having to be bothered with any of that shit. And so, you know, they were a good team in a lot of respects, you know. But as in how I felt, and what I've got to remember is, you know, and possibly others too, that my emotions are my emotions. No one can make you feel certain emotions. And usually, when we feel certain emotions, whether that be positive or negative, they arise from past situations and experiences. And so you know, we do what we can when we can, as life happens, and try to learn from it. And so I always felt, I just felt in the way. I just really felt like an inconvenience, and, you know, like I was in the way. Sometimes even my personality, you know, and I've got to admit, and this isn't blaming anyone again, you know, I can't say that enough. This is just solely about, you know, that part of my life stood in my shoes. So I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone. That's not the aim. Not one bit. Like I said, not so long ago, confrontation is like, oh, fuck, you know. And I physically feel sick if I feel I've got to confront someone. You know, it doesn't matter the age of the person or anything. I just, you know. So, yeah. My dad, when he got back from work, needed to wind down. You know, there was a time when we all had public houses very close to home, and it's where the men used to go to wind down, you know, out of the work mindset, before they went home to the wives. My dad didn't do that. From what I remember, he never did that. And I always remember growing up, when it got brought to my attention, you know, when I got to an age where all my peers and that were drinking and, you know, white lightning and that shitty cider that's never seen an apple in its life, it's all just chemical shit. I can remember all my friends, well, I say all my friends, my peers, you know, doing these certain things that I didn't even really know existed. You know, I led a real sheltered life, and I know it was purposely done. You know, I mean, as a parent myself, you know, you want to protect children because of their innocence. There's certain things, like with my mum's situation of upbringing, that cause a child to be forcibly matured, if that makes sense. And it can have implications, and often does. Not all the time, but very often. So, you could say I was wrapped up in cotton wool. And I didn't know any different, you know. Hi Maya's Paranormal. Hope you're well. You're welcome to the show, if you can call it that. So, yeah, so where was I? Basically, you try to shield your children from all the adult things and all the responsibility until, you know, a suitable time. And obviously there's no hard and fast rule and nothing set in stone about being a parent. You just do your best with what you've got at that time. And that's all you can do, no more, no less. And so again, Mum, you know, I just want to say, I love you. Yeah, fruit's amazing. And you know, I I know I'm coming off subject, but what I would like to say is, you know, why fruit? In my opinion, why fruit? Well, it makes me feel alive, and as in human dentistry, fruit ripens and is available, and what do? We pick it and eat it. It's already prepared by nature, by God, you know, whatever you want to call it, you know, but it's there for the picking. You don't have to prepare it. The thing is with vegetables, you know, plants have cellulose, I believe, as a cell wall, which takes a while to break down and is somewhat a lot more difficult to break down if it's raw vegetables. And so obviously, you know, with digestion and all things like that, it's, you know, you could say that we don't make the most of all the nutrition that's available in vegetables in a raw state. Also though, you know, vegetables, and I love vegetables. I love meat, although I don't eat meat very often anymore. I would like to say not at all, but I did have a cooked dinner from my stepmom. Thank you, Joan, if you do see this video. It was an amazing dinner, you know, and thank you. I love you cooking, but it made me feel shit. And sometimes I've got this habit, I've got to really test myself, you know, call it just a human trait, just call it whatever. And I have to sometimes, I've learned in the past the very hard way, you know, against everybody's advice, against everyone else's opinion, you know. And so, that being said, yeah, I woke up at 10:30 this morning, as opposed to, you know, I've been on the black grape and lemon detox. Possibly, you know, I should keep account, you know, I do lapse a bit there. I'm not very strict with myself, you know, but, so yeah, doing the detox, the first week of, you know, going back on this lemon and black grape detox, I felt shitty. I'd got, well, where do I start? I got autoimmune symptoms through the fucking roof, as in, you know, MS symptoms. I started getting, it usually starts out where I start feeling numb on my thumb, you know, and then sometimes it'll move, especially if I'm hungry, I've noticed, it'll move to my lips. You know, I didn't give it much thought, and this was happening for quite a while, you know, sort of gaslighting myself, I suppose, you know, like, oh, you know, it's just in my imagination and all that shit. I know that now to not be true, and, you know, it's so not true. And so the other thing was, you know, for the first week, I started getting up in the night several times to go to the toilet. Which, you know, when I was at my worst before coming on the fruit diet, was a regular thing. In fact, you know, might be a bit personal information, but if you don't like that, you know, this channel ain't for you. And so I suggest that you tune out now and go and tune into another channel. But yes, at my worst, which was, you know, over 3 years ago, coming up for Christmas time, I often didn't make it to the toilet, and I know how that sounds, and it wasn't because of any other reason that I was having bladder problems. I didn't know at the time. It was, you know, certain things could point to, yeah, and you are what you eat, you know. I've noticed, just to touch on that, like, you know, I smell different, my body's cleaner, my skin's cleaner. I've had comments about my eyes being brighter, like, full of life. One thing I want to say about fruit, if you want to feel alive, if you want to feel switched on and coherent, it is the absolute way to go, you know, without a doubt. Touching on the meat again, you know, I didn't realise back in my past that eating dead flesh wasn't going to make me feel alive. In fact, possibly others can relate to this too, more than likely, being humans, that protein and animal fats and food that takes a lot of power to digest, because it's not really meant for the human body. Take that as you will. This is my belief. And the shoes that I've got on while I'm walking this path of discovery, it just shows it, it shouts it to me all the time. All the time. How can you eat a dead animal and feel alive? You know, you are what you eat. More to the point, the calmer. You know, I used to love milk. In a way I still do, but I don't drink it anymore. So I'm dairy free, you know, as in I don't eat eggs. I don't eat butter unless it's vegan butter. You know, animal fats of any, you know, and I used to be a tuna freak. God, you know, especially when I was pregnant, it was what I ate for breakfast, you know, with mushy peas, you know, mackerel and mushy peas out at tin. God, you know, I love that shit. But I was so unaware of the way that it made me feel. As in, it made me feel so low energy. It made me feel like just exhausted. Just exhausted, you know. And the same as when I ate the tea last night, you know. And trust me when I say, you know, oh God, I ate it like it was going out of fashion. You know, I even had words with myself and ignored myself, you know. I don't know whether you can relate to that, but basically, you know, when you're eating something that you love the taste of, you know, it's like it's going out of fashion. I couldn't eat it fast enough. And then even when I'd ate it and I felt full, it had like switched on this greed type, you know, it's never enough sort of feeling. But near enough straight away, I would say 15 minutes of, you know, of having finished my meal, you know, I noticed my mood change drastically. You know, I got a lack of patience, I felt exhausted and just no energy to do anything, you know, what I needed to do. And what I needed to do was quite a few little chores before I popped off to bed. You know, I've got no one else here with me, living with me, you know, I've not got work because of my health and whatnot. But that being said, you know, it's like, you know, you've got your discipline and, you know, you've got, if you don't do shit, it's basically rolling on to the next day and you've got to do it the next day with everything else that you've got to do that day also. And so, you know, 20 minutes afterwards, I said to my dog, come on, doghead, let's go to bed. And I had horrible tummy ache. And, you know, I had to basically address how I was feeling again, you know, and, you know, ask myself, do I want this? Do I want this feeling again, knowing what I know now and coming as far as I've come now, and I know I've still got a long way to go? No, I don't. No, I don't. You know, and my family doing this fruit detox and this journey, you know, it's had profound effects on them, as in they've been worried. You know, I lost an immense amount of weight and I looked really poorly. Really poorly. There's no doubt about it in my mind, and I knew that. And it's a lot of the time, if other people have experienced this, they will know that basically, if you have been on a lifetime of eating what we call normal food, which I beg to differ now, and I know different, that your lymphatic system is basically clogged up. And so just want to touch on one point. I've got nothing against doctors and medical professionals, but they tell you half a story and only want to treat symptoms, and so that's not for me. I want to get to the root of the problem. I want to make a difference. I want to be empowered to do something about it to my advantage and be the best that I can be and feel the best that I can feel. And so, you know, going back to my past, I started using cannabis, made me feel, you know, so basically I didn't do the work on myself, you could say. I cut corners, you know, knowing now what I know. I wish I'd have put the effort in, but I was very much in a state of lack of confidence, and I had low to no self-esteem, and you know, there were certain things that I was probably consciously or unconsciously unaware of and didn't really want to face up to. And so that was the catalyst to start me running from fear, from pain, from everything, you know. And so, you know, in relation to doctors, for a headache, what to do, you take a paracetamol. But how many times are you going to take a paracetamol before